Good afternoon, sir. First, let me introduce myself. I am Labian Alveiga from BSHM1B, and this is my investigative reporting regarding on President Duterte's Agrarian Reform Agenda. This investigative reporting is based on information obtained from various sources, including published news articles, official government statements, and reports from independent media and research organizations. Let's go first with the overview. I read it. Presidential Agrarian Reform Council, or the PARC, was in hiatus for 10 years from 2006 to 2016 when the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program Extension with Reforms, or the CARPER, deadline took effect. But despite the difficulties, the CARP, or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program under President Duterte is in a period of reawakening. President Duterte reactivated the PARC, or the Presidential Agrarian Reform Council, on September 12, 2016. The PARC immediately revoked stock distribution option plans and agribusiness venture arrangements, which can counter to the provisions of agrarian reform laws. The PARC, or the Presidential Agrarian Reform Council, was not active for 10 years from 2006 to 2016, because during that time the deadline for the CARP, or the CARPER, um, was in effect. However, um, under President Duterte, there has there has been a renewed focus on agrarian reform. He reactivated the PRRC on September 12, 2016. And one of the first actions of the reactivated PARC was to cancel stock distribution plans and agribusiness venture arrangements, um, which were not in line with the laws of agrarian reform. This shows a renewed commitment to implementing agrarian reform measures under President Duterte's administration. Secondly, the President is focusing on the distribution of Certificate of Land Ownership and Acquisition, or the CLOAS, to agrarian reform beneficiaries, or the ARBs, nationwide. The 4.8 million hectares of agricultural lands have been distributed to 2.7 million agrarian reform beneficiaries. But there's still a lack of sufficient support services to ARBs and their dependents. And Duterte's administration, apart from its predecessors, is the fact that this presidency has agrarian reform in its heart. President Duterte is focusing on distributing CLOAS, or what we call the Certificate of Land Ownership and Acquisition, to agrarian reform beneficiaries, or the ARBs, across the country. Although 4.8 million hectares of agricultural lands have already been distributed to 2.7 million agrarian reform beneficiaries, there remains a lack of necessary support services for ARBs and their um, families. And what sets Duterte's administration apart from previous ones is his deep commitment to agrarian reform, and his administration um, prioritizes the welfare and rights of farmers and aims to address the challenges they face in um, acquiring and cultivating land. So, we have here the agenda of President Rodrigo Duterte, starting from 2016 to present. Um, Under his leadership, the president wants to pursue an aggressive reform program that may help alleviate the lifetime of poor Filipino farmers by prioritizing the supply of support services alongside land distribution. So in this investigative report, I have just examined President Duterte's agrarian reform agenda aims to address long-standing issues of land distribution and ownership in the Philippines, focusing on empowering landless farmers through equitable access to agricultural lands and support services. President Duterte directed the DAR or the Department of Agrarian Reform to launch the second phase of agrarian reform where landless farmers would be awarded undistributed lands under the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program or the CARP. So President Rodrigo Duterte fully supports all Filipino farmers by empowering them to be more prosperous as they contribute their share to ensuring food security for all our countrymen. They also provided finance for additional equipment to speed up their farming. His agenda seeks to uphold the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program or the CARP and to distribute Certificate of Land Ownership Awards or the CLOAS and provide credit and infrastructure support to enhance the productivity and well-being of agrarian reform beneficiaries. He mandated the Department of Agrarian Reform or the DAR to distribute government-owned lands, including the ones in the mountain areas, to agrarian reform beneficiaries or the ARB. Duterte plans to place almost all public lands, including military reserves, under agrarian reform. The president also placed 400 hectares of agricultural land in Boracay under the CARP or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program. Also, under his administration, the DAR created an anti-corruption task force to investigate and handle reports on alleged anomalous activities by officials and employees of the department. So during the PARC or the Presidential Agrarian Reform Council meeting in 2016, President Duterte expressed support for a 2-year moratorium on the conversion of agricultural lands and called for increased aid for the CARP or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program implementation. So his administration aims to distribute the remaining 500,000 hectares of land covered by the terminated Carper Law. So he made such an announcement during the ceremonial distribution of 3,423 certificates of land ownership award or the CLOAS to representatives of 2,495 beneficiaries in Barangay Kauswagan in Sagay City. And he also promised the agrarian reform beneficiaries or the ARBs who received their CLOAS during the ceremonial distribution that they would also receive fertilizers and support services. President Duterte said that the CARP or the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program has been implemented since the administration of former President Corazon Aquino, and he is simply enforcing the law. However, he acknowledged the challenges in distributing estates because some occupants don't want to let go of their lands, and some espouse the communist rebels movement. And according to the Department of Agrarian Reform or the DAR, 485 of the beneficiaries who received their land titles have already been provided with essential support services from their department, including credit facilitation and availment, capacity development, trainings, uh, provision of common service facilities, livelihood support, agro-extension services, and among others. But based on my investigation, I have noticed that there have been challenges and shortcomings of this agenda. And I have found that the distribution of land titles to agrarian reform beneficiaries has been delayed, causing uncertainty and frustration among farmers who are eagerly awaiting their ownership rights. And unfortunately, this um, this this also led to hardships and tragically even loss of life. The goal is to reduce poverty and promote social equity in rural communities. However, this agenda has faced criticism and challenges in its implementation, including issues with land acquisition, resistance from landowners, and limited sources for support services. So that's all for today. Thank you for listening, and I hope you learned something from my report. Thank you.